Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here on time. This is our last day for International Coaching Week. We are happy to have you here. This morning, we have with us Angela De Souza, is the CEO of Dynamic Growth Coach Consulting, co-founder of Global EU Coaching Academy, and award-winning former president of ICF South Florida chapter, with more than 20 years of experience serving, speaking, developing, training, and facilitating conscious leadership, personal and business growth, co-native diversity, inclusion, and belonging in many countries around the world, in organizations like FedEx, Microsoft, Shemed, Marriott, UTEL, We Evolution, Vital Voices, Miami, Louis Vuitton, Citizen, ONV, Volksbank, Clinic, Origins, and more. Welcome, Angela. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Claudia. Hi, everyone. I'm super excited to be one of the sessions closing International Coaching Week, especially at ICF, which is very fond in my heart. As you just heard, being part of the board and being president or former president means that you invest at least 4 to 5 years being part of the community and supporting it and helping it watch it grow, and then releasing it to the amazing team that comes after you, which is part of why we're here today. So thank you. I wanted to take the time to also thank you, ladies from the board present here, Valeska, Shakti, Claudia, for making this happen. The growth has been amazing for our chapter since I left, and it's just super exciting to come back in a different capacity now. So welcome everyone who's joining right now. I'm happy to see some familiar faces joining. I'm going to ask you, Claudia, if you can, during the presentation, just take some pictures of what's happening, and as the people join in, so we can share it to them later as well.
Sure.
And today, the invitation is to take in this as a workshop presentation, and to understand that everything that I'm going to be talking about is going to be going back and forth between you as a person, you as a coach in your coaching practice, and you as the CEO or the owner of your coaching business, okay? So I'm gonna bring these references back and forward with everything that we're gonna be talking about. Measure up how to improve results from your clients, for your clients, and up your gains with just a quick shift of mindset. So hopefully we'll make that happen today at the end of the day. And I chose this presentation based on a book that I read. I'm a Kolbe coaching consultant. I don't know if you're familiar with Kolbe, but a strategic coach is a partner there. And Dan Sullivan shows up to the conferences that we do once a year, that we go to once a year. So it's great to have his books. And today you're going to get this as a gift at the end of the presentation. You have to fill out a form and you'll get the book for free as well. So that's like a little extra that we're throwing in for being in here and for taking the time for yourself and for your business. Part of what I love doing is help business owners, leaders, and entrepreneurs drive their business, grow their business, believe in themselves while doing it, but also taking care of themselves along the way. So to me, it's not about how well you execute your job, but it's more about how well are you while executing it, okay? So keep in mind, this is going to be the way of delivery today. Our takeaways hopefully will be to shift the ways that you're seeing and measuring your business and your life, and see the growth from pain to gain, okay? So we're going to try to move our mindset there. And I'm going to share something really cool that I haven't shared with many people yet, only a couple of times before. So you're going to get like this first time viewing of the Resignifying Your Greatness model. It's a model from our company. And then I want you to see ways to connect the pain and the gain to bring breakthroughs to your clients, and also connecting it to ICF competencies, okay? At the end of the session. So based on the book from Dan Sullivan, who is the CEO and creator of Strategic Coach, and he worked with coaches who made more than $200,000 a year basically as his business to help seasoned coaches grow. So today we're going to talk about how your brain works. And these are the 8 topics in the book that we're going to be kind of touching in today. How to create, how to measure your progress, how to measure from back and forth. So ideals cannot be achieved, how to measure backward, how to step out of the gap, how to always expand your gain, create goal creation, happiness as a byproduct, and 3 wins every day. We're going to touch very briefly on some of this and go deeper on the others. And I also want to hear from you. So I don't want to be I love to talk, so I can talk for hours, but I don't want to talk just by myself. And today we're going to start with from the gap to the gain. And this is what happens. Dan Sullivan shared with us that the way we're measuring our progress is the key component into us feeling the pain of staying in the gap versus feeling the gain of moving forward. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, and it also happens in the organizational world, we want to make something happen, and we start measuring from the starting point where we are, but we focus on the goal, on the big ideal that we want to reach at the end of the day. And then we start focusing on why haven't we made it there yet? Why haven't we gotten our big dream of making this much money or growing our business this much or having this many followers? Whatever it is that drives you and drives your business forward, we start from the starting point, and then we just see the big ideal. And then when we measure it from that point, we're not seeing the step by step. We're always seeing the gap. We're always seeing what's still missing. We're always seeing like, I'm not there yet, because it's a huge space between where you are right now and your ideal goal. And I remember John Maxwell was talking one day, and they asked him, so John, I mean, I'm guessing many of you or all of you know who John Maxwell is. He has a leadership academy for speakers, a coaching program. He's a coach nowadays, and also like a business owner for his whole life, and an inspirational speaker. So they asked him, when are you going to be done? Like, when did you reach your goals, or when are you reaching your goals or your ideals? And he said, never, because we're always going to have a bigger goal or a bigger idea to refer to. So if we start measuring it from where you are to where you're not there yet, you're going to remain in the gap. There will be a lot of unhappiness, and you're not going to feel fulfilled with your goals. The proposal from the book is, if you start measuring where you are, and then you measure small goals every day that will help you reach that ideal dream or reach that ideal bigger goal, then you can actually start seeing some progress, okay? And I want to ask you, while you're hearing everything that I'm sharing so far, how do you think you've been measuring your business, your life, your team, whichever one you want to share, before you came today? How do you feel you've been measuring your business? Have you been measuring from the gap, or have you been measuring from the gain? You can also share in the chat if you don't feel like speaking today. Claudia, I think we can unmute if anyone wants to speak.
No, they're able to unmute themselves.
Okay, all right. So I'll keep moving forward, and then you can talk throughout the presentation. I'm going to be asking questions because, like I said, I want to hear from you too. And the next slide is how do we move away from the pain? When we're stuck in the gap, we start feeling a lot of pain and a lot of what we call comparisonitis, or comparisonitis. Like, you compare yourself to your team members, you compare yourself to your peers, you compare yourself to, I don't know, social media or other business owners who might be doing better than you. And I want to invite you today to think of everything that we're sharing for your business, but also for your client. Because as coaches, when we activate our listening, we can also hear if our client is actually sitting in the space of gain or in the space of the gap. After this presentation, you'll be able to take some nooks and crannies to bring this into your coaching practice. So one of the steps that I want to invite you to think of is, how are you seeing your practice today? Are you seeing it from the zero, I still have so much more to do to move forward and to achieve my goals? Or are you seeing your glass half full instead of half empty? And how much responsibility are you taking from this mindset? Because a lot of times the idea today is to create awareness for you into your business and awareness for you as a coach for your clients. So this is also a good way to start asking questions to your client to see, when you're not taking responsibility, but you're complaining, and feeling like you're not getting there, that you're not making it, you're not cutting it into the goals or ideals that you're creating for yourself, then your client or yourself might be into this gap mentality. And how do we get out of it? Understanding that our brain is always going to play trick on us. So we kind of have to work with our mind, our mindsets. So this is the invitation. Our mind is much bigger than our brain, because our brain sees the limits. Our brain sees the gigantic gap that we have from today into that ideal that we're probably never going to reach, because once we reach it, we have a bigger ideal and a bigger ideal. So that's where the feeling and emotion of unfulfilledness and like I'm not thriving, pessimism, like I'm never going to make it because it looks so big, starts kicking in. So how can we fix this? We need to stop being so general about what we do every day in our business, or how we help our clients as well, how they're showing up and how general they can be when they're starting a coaching process. Remember that as ICF core competencies, and we have a process, and every day or every time we meet with a client, we have a session. In the process, we have to determine ways to measure what they want to achieve at the end of the whatever many sessions you book with your clients. And if it's too general, then we as coaches cannot help measure at the end of the process. And them as clients are going to feel like maybe they didn't achieve what they came for. So this is very important to see also in our business. How general are we being with our goals every day, with our big ideal, but especially with the small steps that we're taking to move towards that bigger goal, or to move towards that bigger ideal, because that's the only way we're going to find that gain. So the more specific that you can get for yourself and for your clients, the best you're going to be moving away from the pain and into the gain. And remember always to ask yourself, and kind of your clients as well, is whose idea is this? Whose goal is this? Whose brain is measuring it? Are you measuring from the brain of a business owner who's been in season for 20 years and you're just seeing what they're doing and you're not there yet? That's pain, and that's the gap. Are you measuring from yourself, from when you started a year ago, 6 months ago, 10 years ago, and where you are today? Where are you today compared to a few years ago? And I want to be very careful with this, because I know in coaching, we're not supposed to go back. It's more like therapy type of work. But when we're talking about the gap and the gain, we go back because we're just looking back. We twist it, we turn around to see how many steps have we moved forward, not to be stuck in the story of what happened in the past, but to actually measure into the future from the past. Is it making sense to all of you? I want to kind of see if you're following me, if it's making sense, if you have any questions this far. I'm glad to see some faces that I recognize, and some new faces as well.
Totally makes sense.
Great. So these are kind of like 3 key components. Remember, your mind's bigger than your brain. You need to measure more specifics and not generals. And be aware and be careful of whose ideals are this, or whose goals are this, and from whose brain are you actually measuring this from. So the ideal, when we set up an ideal dream or an ideal goal, it's amazing because it helps us open or create a bigger picture, which is our mind creating this picture for us. It gives us a whole new world of possibilities. So it illuminates us, it motivates us to move forward to this dream that we have. But if we don't know how we're measuring moving forward, if we don't know how far we're getting every day, even if it's one win that you get every day, you and your client is going to feel at some point like, okay, I'm not achieving anything. So this creates an emotionality of pessimism and cynicism. And I want to invite your active listening in your coaching processes with your clients to kind of try to recognize if they're in this particular gap, if they're stepping into the gap, and then you can kick it in as a coach and say, okay, let's just revisit where you were in the beginning of our process, or where you were a few years ago into this goal compared to where you are today. Because even if you're not able to remove them from the gap right then and there, just by sharing how can they measure it, and this is part of our coaching process at ICF, how can they measure at the end their progress? You ask the questions like, how are you going to know that you reach this goal? It's a way of measuring in the coaching session. And it's a good question for you too. How will you know at the end of today that you have reached the goal and that you're moving forward into your ideal at the end of the month or at the end of the week? It's not just based on what's the big picture, but on how am I moving forward? How much progress am I making moving up into this big mountain that I am pacing myself to go into? So these are two of our core competencies that you can work with at the Gap and the Gain. And at the end of your session, when you ask those very powerful questions that I'm sure you all know how to do, it's like, okay, how are you feeling about this goal? How are you measuring it? How is it comparing to where you started before? What's your ideal? What if we turn back and look at how many steps have you made this far? How are you going to measure it at the end of the day or at the end of the week or at the end of our coaching session? What if this doesn't work? What's your plan B? These are ways of measuring more specific than general ways for your clients. And then at the end of the day, just asking them, evoking awareness into saying, how forward have you moved? How forward do you feel you've moved this far? And how forward do you want to move? And what's the space in between? This is the type of coaching that I do. It's called the space in between, because it's a space in between where you are right now in your business and where you want to go. And everything really happens in that space in between, which is the gap and the gain. Is the space of the gap. If you're seeing it from the gap, or if you're turning around like this little fellow here, we need the horizon line to establish our goals. But then if we're not measuring it in specifics, we're just feeling like we're in the gap versus the gain. So ask your clients to turn around and look at the steps that they have taken to move forward. And today I want to ask you, and I really want to hear your voices right now. If I ask you to stop and share with us your expertise and in your own words, can you stop and look back and share with us one or two achievements of progress that you are able to recognize by looking back versus looking forward?
I'm happy to share.
Okay, Shakti, go ahead.
I've made huge strides in my goal towards my certification for in my coaching, to the point where that will be getting wrapped up probably next month. And I have built a base of clientele.
Okay. Thank you, Shakti. Anyone else? And as coaches, that's another thing that ICF does for us in the beginning. It's kind of hard to understand, why do I need to move forward with my credential? But as you move forward, it's not only I am achieving my credential, but it's you're achieving a next level of expertise. And when I look back at the coaching that I was doing in the very beginning, I was like, oh, I feel today as a PCC like, oh my God. For clients, in the beginning, because you're doing your best, but when you compare it to where you are today, it's like not only you achieve more letters behind your name, but there's a level of expertise and growth for you professionally, for you as a coach, and also in your coaching practice for your clients at the end of the day. So basically is sharing with you extra tools and extra thoughts on how to stay in the game. Also, we continue moving forward in our coaching session with our clients and in our business right now. And after COVID, after this pandemic that we've all been in, I think everybody's business has taken a toll or a change or a transformation exponentially. Everybody has a different story, and your clients do too. But what I'm seeing with my clients at home with myself is this different way of feeling about where we're going and what we're doing. So now more than ever, our clients are needing us as coaches. More than ever, coaching has become relevant in the world. And I don't buy this whole thing that there are too many coaches out there and that the coaching space is already full. Actually, I think this is just the beginning of coaching. Everybody should understand how to have coaching conversations, how to make powerful questions into the business world, because this is the way we innovate. This is the way we move forward. But think about where we are today after a post-pandemic world, where a lot of people are left, were taken out of their job or left their job. And there's a reset, there's a re-signifying of greatness, and it's hard sometimes when we don't see the gain to move the needle forward, for our clients or move the needle forward for ourselves sometimes. And one of the steps here is this self-forgiveness, because when we continue seeing us into what's missing and what do I still need to do, or how much more do I still need to grow, versus I'm just moving forward because I'm taking 1 or 3 steps a day, it really shifts something in your heart. It really shifts something in your soul, and it shifts something in your page if you're actually measuring one day at a time. I mean, one step at a time. And this is what the proposal is. So when your day contains small measurable progress, you start feeling happy, you start feeling achievement, you start feeling that your potential is actually being used in the right way, and your goals start becoming more of a reality. And what's happened to us, like I said again, in the post-COVID world right now, where there's so much happening and so much to recover from, we tend to go to our basics. We tend to go to what we learn from our ancestors, from our leaders from before us, and we also tend to replicate it. So I want to invite you to kind of switch it up, to switch up this conversation of how much do you need to get there, and really use it when you see your client feeling this gap. How can you measure it from before to today? Because the ideal vision of this big thing that I'm not reaching is not helping us empower our practices and empower our clients sometimes. So how do we help them switch from the forward ideal measurement of when I get there, or what do I need, what am I missing to still get there, to let's go back and measure how far have we come? And I know it sounds very redundant, but it's very important in the team space, in the teamwork space, as leaders, like as conscious leaders of your business. And when your client is an executive leader, if you're doing this type of client, or if it's a parent, because my proposal is that at the end of the day, you are a leader of whatever it is that you do. The teenagers are leaders of their own lives. You're a leader of your own life at the end of the day. You don't have to own a business and have people under you to be a CEO or a leader or an executive leader. Just the fact that you are in a society, in a community, that you have younger siblings below you, that you have kids under you, under your care, you are a leader. You have to embrace and show up from that mentality for you and for the other people around you. So one of the pet peeves we see also with teams and leaders in the executive world and at home as well, and with big siblings, because I have all of the above in my personal life, is that if we stick with our ideals to ourselves and we keep our dreams to ourselves, then we're not involving our team in trying to help or move forward this needle or co-create or expand or transform exponentially where we want to go. And at the end of the day, this is also part of the game. When you actually open up that ideal or that goal and bring in your teammates, then you can also hear their ideals and their goals, how they can pair up, they can offer help to you. So this is another way that's a big game changer on how to step out of the gap and into the game. Because if you stay in isolation, just managing your coaching business on your own, and you don't share it out with the world and you don't share it out with your clients and the benefits you can do for them, then you're going to be stuck in your little box. But when you start multiplying this effect by sharing with others what you do, by hearing actively where they are, that you can start exponentially moving forward your mutual ambitions. And this is part of what we do at ICF South Florida, reconnecting with each other. But I want to invite you to be even more intentional about this with your teammates and with your clients, to invite them to use some of these core competencies, like my active listening, my powerful questioning, open-ended questions, in order to move forward your business, but in order to move forward more exponentially, because you never know when are you going to find a peer that could have something that you consider part of the gap, but it could be a gain for you and your business at the end of the day. What I'm trying to say with this is that all of us have our strengths, and there are other things that are weaknesses. It doesn't mean that we cannot do it. Of course, we can do them. It's going to cost us a lot more energy, mentally speaking. But if you find someone that has a strength that you've been looking for in you, and maybe you can come together and actually create a program together or show up together at an event or be part of your team, you're going to 10 times multiply that effect at the end of the day, because it's their group, your group, it comes together. You're focusing more of your strength. The other person is focusing more of their strength, and we multiply it. And when we're talking about the organizational world here, we have seen a lot of fear in our leaders. First, they're exhausted. They're still trying to put fires down. They're still trying to keep their job or save their job, and they have lost a lot of team members that may have been key components for them, and they're like all over the place. So they don't have time to really share their ideals anymore. So how do we help them stop and put them into this mindset of, okay, where are you right now? How far do you want to go? Who can help you in your team go that far? How open are you to see the gap, reduce the gap by seeing the gains? How powerful is for you to share, or do you have the time and the space for you to share with your team? Because this could also create some space for you in your business practice to say to them, hey, I can help you with that. I can talk to your team members. I can create a safe space for all of you to talk honestly into what's going on in the gap and how do we get to the gain, because all of you as coaches are trained to do that. The leaders out there are not really. And when I started in the beginning saying that we hear a lot that the coaching world is like saturated right now, the coaching space, it is not, because those leaders out there, those parents out there as well, those teenagers growing into adults out there do not have the training that all of you have. So there's a lot more work to do out there, a lot more to gain from remembering that not everybody knows how to make a powerful coaching conversation, and that a coaching conversation can bring your client and can bring that parent into a space of, okay, someone is taking care of me right now. I can have this honest conversation. I can look back and measure and see where am I at, and stop feeling like I'm not reaching that final goal at the end of the day. Because if you don't measure progress, if you measure the progress by the ideal and the big picture only, you're going to be stuck in that pain versus that gain. So how do we exponentially move forward and transform it? The game changer is really connecting to each other, sharing this ideal, finding a partner, finding an accountability partner, which in this case, you are the accountability partner for your client, but who's the accountability partner for you in your business on a daily basis? That's my question for you right now. And I would love to hear from you. Who's supporting you? Who's your accountability partner to measure this potential future for yourselves? And I'm going to stop sharing for a moment because I really want to see your faces and hear you out. We don't have very talkative people today. Hi, Sven. It's been a long time.
Unmute myself here. Hi, Angela. Great seeing you, of course. And as you put me here now on the spot, I'm happy to share. So first of all, I think I'm pretty good in holding myself accountable. That not always works, but somehow it is in me. If I rather sometimes have the problem to give something up which doesn't make sense anymore. But left that aside, I work with a coach myself, and my coach is my accountability partner on private projects. Of course, it's my family, and I have friends that I mean, this is not serious business, but we have our goals in sports and we hold each other accountable. Hey, would you come over and run a 10K with me? And then you are there and you need to show up at 7 o'clock in the morning with your gear and then run the long distance that you might not have done without them. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Great. And that's have you at some point in your coaching career or felt like at some point you were measuring yourself from the gap versus the gain? Do you remember at all?
Well, I think it. I would say it's always a little bit of both. I come from the corporate world, and what we are used to do is do a budget. So we set ourselves a goal, or we put together a budget, and then we want to make so much revenue. And I think, yes, I celebrate the gains, even if it is not entirely up to the level, and I'm not beating myself up on the gap. But of course, yeah, it's in my head, and as you described that, it's important to not get lost in the gap, or but on the other hand, also it needs some attention. If I want to make a revenue of 100 and I make only 70, I need to analyze where does it come from. Maybe my service is not great enough. Maybe I don't do enough in marketing. Maybe I charge not enough. So I think we need to also pay attention to the gap, but in the sense of generating some growth from that. That would be my philosophy around it.
I love it, Sven. Thanks for sharing. A couple of things I want to rescue from what you're sharing is number one, the example that you use, because in coaching, I think it works a lot with some clients, because some clients are more visual than others, and some need maybe more information, and creating visuals for the client. When you say about running, running a marathon or a race is a great way to understand the gap and the gain as well. And we can use this also as an analogy with our clients, like if you decide you're going to start running tomorrow and you've never really run before, you can't run that marathon. You have to start like with little goals, very tiny little goals is what they tell us out there. The professionals who do run it, like get your group, but also start with small goals and how to measure them. And if you're not reaching those small goals, then go back, like you just said, and say, okay, what's going on? And by any means, I really want to make this clear. This is not just motivational speaking today. This is creating awareness, and we're coaches. So yes, absolutely, Sven, at the end of the day, and this is what we love about ICF, that is probably the only coaching structure out there that really focuses on on a structure, on a step-by-step process in which at the end of the session, and I want to remind all of us, we have to kind of measure where we are, where we were in the beginning and where we are at the end of the coaching session with our client and for our client most of all, so that they understand how they're moving forward or not, and kind of go back to why do you think, what do you need in order to get to that 10 that you want at the end of your process or at the end of your coaching session. And like Sven saying, what do we need to reassess, to redo, to reset, or to resignify? And that's what I'm going to get into with the next slides. What do we need to resignify in order to really make it to that bigger goal at the end of the year, the quarter, the day, or the coaching session? Anyone else wants to share something, maybe ask a question of what I spoke about so far, or share a personal experience?
I can just really briefly share something that, and I'm also from the banking and finance side of the world and relatively new to coaching, but a big thing that in the management of any of the transactions or projects that I've ever in my life worked on that really kept, I think, me and my team and my clients on track was to create a very detailed, what we call the time and responsibility schedule, which had a lot of intermediate steps in it. And it allowed people to stay connected with the process, from start to end, and really keep a good visual of where we are and what we've accomplished and what we still have to do and how all these steps are trickling into each other to achieve that goal. You don't get from step 1 to step 10 ever by making one giant leap. There's a lot of steps in between that you take in reality to get there. And I think it connects to, at least from what I heard Sven just say, it resonated very much with that. And this is something I still apply today, although with a new perspective of me and my business. Caught me a little bit off guard because it actually was quite difficult for me to see it that way when it was my own business that I was looking at versus a project or something else. I'm not 100% sure why that was such a big shift for me, but I see that now and I'm looking at it now that way, and it brings a lot more peace and calm to the process.
For you as a business owner. Great. Yes, absolutely. And thanks for sharing it, Shakti. I mean, that's the point at the end of the day, to bring it to your clients, to also share with them what Shakti is sharing, what's been sharing. It's like, hey, we want to chew this big goal, and how do we do it in smaller pieces? And that needle again keeps moving when you just rescuing what you said, Shakti. It's like, okay, you set up the big goal and the steps in between. But as you continue to move forward, the steps are gone because you already did them, but then we're moving the needle. So celebrate the moving the needle, but also know that there's still more to do. But there's a process chemically in our brain that by just checking that step that's done, or by reaching the first $5,000 or reaching the first $100, whatever it is, whichever way you're measuring that goal, whether it's numbers or money or steps or actions, just by checking that list off and talking about it and bringing this closure to your client or to your business makes you feel chemically like excitement, happiness, like you're moving forward and your mindset continues to grow, versus the opposite of staying stuck into what am I not doing. Because I gave this speech in Spanish on Monday, and I want to bring this also as coaches, because this is a very important point for us as coaches to understand. If we have a client that is continuously being stuck in the gap, and we can't help them get out or shake it off, and we can't help that needle move forward for them, obviously it has to be for them, because you could think that they're moving forward, you can see it, you can measure it for them. This is what we don't do this in our coaching session. We bring that out of our client, from our client. In the corporate world should be doing that too, because we may be having a client in front of us that may need more than coaching. So I want to bring this into awareness, to be able to recognize that someone who's stuck in the gap, someone who's stuck continuously not progressing in their eyes, again, this is very important to hear, in their eyes, we need to be conscious and aware enough that we may be needing to refer this client to a professional other than coaching, okay? I don't think we speak about this enough. And I've heard some of our coaches talk about a lot of mental health. Unless you're a mental health trained coach, if your client is not moving the needle and things are continuing to be stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck, and you're not doing it, it doesn't mean that you're a bad coach. It means that maybe they need other type of help. And we're seeing a lot of that nowadays. And there's a lot of raising awareness, and it's not suicide prevention, it's not mental health prevention, is let's open the conversation to, hey, maybe you need to have a different type of conversation. And that doesn't mean that you're going to stop seeing them as a client. If they have the budget, if the company has the budget, you can work with someone who's seen a therapist. I don't know if you knew that. Did you know that? Did you raise your hand, like if you knew that you could be working with a client?
I have several clients. I have several clients that are in therapy in parallel with coaching, and it's great. It's great, and one side helps the other because I see the speed for change, for insights, and everything. It helps a lot.
Yes, because we focus on what we're talking about. So we focus on moving them forward into the little steps every day for their bigger goal. And the therapist focus on whatever it is as blocking them emotionally that we may not be able or capable of moving that needle for them. And that will keep them stuck in your coaching session or in the coaching conversation for them. So I'm going to move forward quickly because I want to share my secret sauce here with you for signifying your greatness and how to kind of bring it into your coaching practice and into your life. And after going through a lot myself 5 years ago and visiting many other coaching companies and being at ICF South Florida and receiving a lot of coaches speak and owners of businesses, owners of coaching businesses as well in English and in Spanish, I realized that there aren't that many processes out there. There aren't that many models that makes us stop and look back at what we have, that makes us stop and touch into our greatness, that makes us stop and think about these 4 components. So we are like coaching them back and forward, but what if we could have them in one model for you to think about it when you're with your clients and for you to give your clients so they can think about themselves, their businesses, and their life. And I created this called Resignifying Your Greatness. Oh, I forgot to change it here in English. Sorry about that. Resignificando tu grandeza is in Spanish, but anyway, it's in the beginning slides. You can see it. It's Resignifying Your Greatness. And we do this by working on the space in between, like I mentioned before. And by working in the space in between, we cannot just go over into the goals without attending the emotional states of our clients, without remembering to connect to our body, to our intuition. And I was very excited to see that the changes ICF made into the core competencies when we moved from 11 core competencies that we had before, and then the last few years into the 8 ones that we're using today. I loved, and I was super happy because my coaching program taught me that. And that was one of the most powerful tools I have as a coach that separates me from the rest today, is the power of intuition. So if our emotional state or your client's emotional state, you're not aware of it and it's altered when you're coaching, or it's altered when they're dealing with their challenges, and they're not really bringing into awareness, putting names, putting words to their emotions, then that actually tends to drag the process a bit more. And that doesn't help them be connected, be neutral, and lower the voices, the internal voices, to connect with our body, to connect with our intuition. And I want you to look at this both ways. You as a coach, how do I say this? I want to invite you to remember that you as a coach need to kind of like empty yourself out every time you go into a new coaching session with your client, okay? I think every leader should do this before they go into a meeting, before they go into work. So I invite all of you to do it in your life, in any space in your life, before you go into a conversation with another person. And even when you're going to go into a conversation with yourself, like empty yourself from emotions. Try to neutralize your emotional state, okay? And that way you find that flat line, not flat line because flat line is death, but you find that emotional line that makes you feel neutral, that makes you feel like you can hear your intuition, that you can actually feel your body, and then connect to the conversation from that space. Because when you connect to the conversation from an emotional altered state, you're not going to hear your body, you're not going to hear your intuition, you're not going to hear your client's body, you're not going to see it. And that way you're missing a whole humongous space for coaching. I want to invite you to incorporate the body of your client during the coaching session into your coaching session. Like, how many of you are doing that today? Oh my God, hold on, because I don't know what happened here. I can see my thing too. Okay. How many of you are incorporating this into your coaching practice, like your body, your client's body? I don't know why I can't escape the presentation to look at your faces. Are you there?
We're here, and I don't think
Okay.
we shared your presentation, Angela.
Oh my God, let me see what's going on. Sorry about that. And thanks, Suli, for telling me, because I'm talking like a crazy person here. And I'm thinking you're seeing what I'm showing, and I'm moving around like crazy. Okay. While I put the presentation up, can you just, like, by a
No.
show of hands, if you want, like, are you
No,
are you
I can't
bringing
see it.
We don't see the presentation.
No, I understand. While I do this, are you I'm asking the question, are you how about now?
Yes, we see the presentation. And
All right,
yeah.
cool. So I know we have like very little time left, so I'm gonna rush through this. I want to invite you to use your client's body into your session, and I wanted to know if how many of you are doing it. This is a model that I created after recognizing that there was nothing like this out there, and I wanted to share with you, and hopefully it'll help and it'll expand whatever it is that you're doing right now. But if I want you to take one thing today with this, we're signifying your greatness, it's revise your emotional state and that of your client during the session. For you is before the session. Reconnect with your body and intuition. When you're in the neutral state, you allow your body and your intuition to come in. So I want to invite you to create a practice of 5 minutes, 3 minutes, whatever works for you, to like let go, empty your emotional state that you're in, or whatever is happening in your life, to come in into a more intuitive mindset, intuitive body, to be there for your clients. I want to invite you to also use that body and from your client to draw and ask questions about how the body's showing up. If you see tears, what are those tears coming to say? If you see anxiety in their body, if you see them very tense, just invite the body of your client into the conversation. It doesn't matter how corporate your client is. If you do that, they're going to connect and relax. And that's the space in between in which you can have that exponential power to improve the breakthroughs in your session. And resignifying your conversation is really understanding the conversations that are going into your head before your coaching session and into your business, but also in your client. Recognize the conversations, those active conversations they're having, how they're helping them move forward or not. And then, only then, when we visit all of these pieces of the pie or quadrants that make you as a whole human being, that make your client be a whole leader, that's when we can bring the breakthrough in of conscious action. Only then your client can truly recognize fully who they are, how their body is coming up with them, showing up, if their intuition is guiding them or they're just following those patterns from the picture I showed you before. And I'm going to kind of go back to that picture of what the ancestors, it could be the ancestor leader or the ancestor parent or the ancestor leader, leadership ideal versus them today. That's the only moment that they can take conscious actions into place, and we're the drivers for them, but they're the ones who have to see it at the end of the day to be able to repeat those conscious actions and to go back into the model again and again, like a spiral into a growing direction. I see some hands up out there.
Thank you, Angela. We need to wrap up in the next 30 seconds.
We are. So at the end of the
you.
day, resignifying your greatness are those steps. You're going to get the presentation, and make sure that you, to expand this happiness for yourself, for your business, measure 3 wins every day. At the end of the day, it's going to help you stay in the gap, stay in the game versus the gap. And that's pretty much everything for me, but I want to hear from you if you have any questions. And I do want to hear how much are you bringing your intuition and your body into your coaching session at the end of the day.
Angela, I'm also sharing the Google form that you sent me so people can register.
Yes, remember you're going to get the free book and the scorecard by filling out the Google form, okay? So questions or anything you want to share right now?
Thank you, Angela. Everything you presented really resonates and just brings forward some of the highlights of, I think, the ways in which we can bring greater value to the coaching and to our clients. So thank you for bringing all that here for us today.
Awesome. And before we go, if you don't have any questions, I would love to hear everyone's share what they're taking today from the presentation. Like, what's your takeaway? Could be one word. So I'm going to call your names in. Shakti, what's your takeaway from the presentation? Just one thing.
Appreciating the gains along the way.
Okay. Carol?
Yeah, looking at the wins.
Okay, thanks. Nicole? Nicole, are you there?
Yes, I also took away the focus on the intuition and in terms of connecting with the body.
Great, thanks. And Istarbe?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thank you very much, Angela. I really liked your presentation. And I would love to highlight 2 things. First of all, the importance, as you were saying, of the intuition. I think it's really important to listen to our inner voice in order to know what we want, and also, well, to not replicate others' actions. As you were saying, it's really important that we are the drivers of our lives and not letting other people's expectations to drive our life. And also, it's really important, another thing that you said about the body language. I mean, I do work a lot with kids, and sometimes it's really difficult for them to express what are their feelings or what are their thoughts. And body language.
Thank you, everyone. I'm sorry I need to stop you, but we have another presentation coming up. So thank you so much for being with us this morning. Thank you, Angela. Bye.